Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. I'm so excited for this one. Today we're taking a look at something I think is really special, is David Petersen's Tales of the I Ching complete score.
Oh yeah, this is really fascinating stuff.
Mm,
A whole orchestral work just based on the I Ching, like the
mhm.
Book of Changes from ancient China, one of the foundational texts of like philosophy and stuff.
Right. And what we've got to work with here, we've got the score itself, all the notes that Petersen wrote to go along with it, and even like the names he gave each piece of music, which
Right.
is interesting because he really structured the music, like the I Ching is structured. It's
Mm.
cool. I also want to point out the dedication in the score.
Yeah.
It's to Mandy, my muse, and the true music in my life.
Oh wow.
Kind of a nice personal touch.
Yeah. Definitely a personal touch.
Yeah.
Speaks to how deeply connected he must have felt to this whole project.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So I Ching itself, I mean, for folks who might not be familiar, it can be kind of hard to wrap your head
A
around.
little mysterious?
Yeah, totally. So maybe we can take a minute to sort of break it down. Like, what are we dealing with here?
Yeah, so basically it's this super old Chinese text. We're talking thousands of years old.
Yeah.
And it's like a combination of a divination tool and a system of philosophy all in one. So I guess you could say it's a way to like predict the future. But it's not really fortune telling. It's more about understanding how change works, like the patterns of change in life.
It's about the now, not so much what's coming later.
Exactly. And what's so cool is how they structured it. So they start with these 8 symbols, 3 lines each. They're called trigrams. They're like the core elements, you could say.
Building blocks.
Right, building blocks. And each one has a name and kind of represents different energies and qualities, like heaven, lake, fire, thunder, wind, water, mountain, and earth.
So you've got these 8 trigrams, and then you combine them.
Right.
Yeah.
Put them together in pairs, one on top of the other.
Top and bottom.
Exactly. And when you do that, you get 64 different 6-line figures called hexagrams. Yeah, but they're not just random. They're arranged in 8 series of 8. So there's a definite system to it.
There's an order to it all.
Yeah. Petersen actually gives a great example in the score. He talks about the heaven over series. So for all the hexagrams in that series, the heaven trigram is always on top. And then it's paired with each of the other trigrams one by one. So you get heaven over heaven, heaven over lake, heaven over fire, and so on. Makes sense.
So that means each of these 64 hexagrams represents a specific situation or like an archetype, right? Something that shows up over and over in life.
Yeah, like a pattern.
Exactly. And if you want guidance about something specific, you can consult the I Ching. And traditionally, you would do that by choosing a hexagram randomly,
Right.
like with yarrow stocks. That was the old school way. But these days, people often use coins. Same idea, though.
Yeah. And then once you've got your hexagram, you look it up in the I Ching, and there's text that goes with each one,
Mm.
like commentary and insights related to whatever you're dealing with.
Mm.
But the important thing is that it's not like a set of rules or anything, like Petersen points out.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to give you all the answers.
Not a rule book.
More like a framework for thinking things through.
Yeah, for like reflecting and seeing things from different angles.
Exactly. And I think the I Ching really emphasizes the balance between opposites, like yin and yang,
Yeah.
how that plays out in our lives and in the world around us.
That balance, yeah. So now let's move from this ancient wisdom to like the present day.
Yeah.
How Petersen turned it all into music. This is the part that really blows my mind. Like he literally started by composing a piece of music for each of the 8 trigrams.
Wow.
That's how he began.
And the way he did it is really cool. For each trigram, he would create this core musical idea, like a little melody or phrase, using modal scales. So modal scales are like, you can think of them as different flavors of music almost, each with its own character. And he would use chants too, like random elements to help him come up with these phrases. So then he'd have this central musical idea and he'd start expanding it to other instruments using musical techniques. Stuff like augmentation and diminution.
Augmentation, what's that?
Augmentation is like taking a musical phrase and stretching it out, making it longer and slower.
Oh, okay.
And diminution is the opposite. You take that phrase and make it shorter and faster. So using these techniques, he could take that little initial idea and make it into something bigger and more complex with more layers.
So then he's got these 8 pieces,
Yeah.
one for each trigram. Then what?
Then comes the really amazing part. He used those trigram pieces as like building blocks to create the 64 hexagram compositions.
Like combining the musical DNA of the trigrams.
Totally. So for each hexagram, he'd take the music from the 2 corresponding trigrams, the upper and lower ones, and he put them together within a structure of 6 sections. He says in the notes that sometimes it sounded like total chaos at first,
Oh, wow.
but he would spend hours and hours shaping the sound, refining it, until he felt it was like a true expression of that hexagram. He said the whole process of composing all the trigrams and then the hexagrams took him about 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah,
That's wild. I
Yeah.
mean, it's a huge undertaking. Shows how dedicated he was to this project.
for sure. And it really highlights that he was trying to blend chance,
Mm-hmm.
randomness, he calls them stochastic elements, with really intentional choices, Like composing isn't just rolling dice.
Right.
And he felt that this approach reflected the core of the I Ching itself. It's like this controlled spontaneity.
Like when you consult the I Ching, you have that random selection of the hexagram
Right.
with the coins or Yarrow stalks or whatever. But then you also have this intentional part, like reflecting on it, figuring out what it means for you. So Petersen's trying to capture that same dynamic, chance and choice,
Yeah.
in the music.
Yeah, I agree.
That-
Yeah.
And, Petersen also mentions in notes that you don't have to listen to the whole thing all at once. It's like 2.5 hours long, so that would be quite a commitment.
Yeah.
There are other ways to experience the music. He suggests maybe focusing on just one series. Like if you're really into the element of water, you could just listen to the Water Over series, the 8 pieces in that series.
Kind of like you can curate your own experience depending on what resonates with you.
Yeah, exactly.
He also suggests listening to the 8 nuclear hexagrams, which are the ones where the upper and lower trigrams are the same, like heaven over heaven or lake over lake.
Those sound intense.
Right, like a
Mhm.
concentrated dose of that particular energy.
And he even suggests like really taking inspiration from the I Ching and actually casting a hexagram with coins, the traditional way.
Yeah.
And then listening to just the piece that corresponds to whatever hexagram you get.
That's cool. Makes it even more personal.
Right. So I think our goal with this deep dive is to try to understand how David Petersen took this ancient wisdom, this whole system of the I Ching,
Yeah.
and turned it into a modern orchestral score.
Yeah. It's really like nothing else. And
Yeah.
it gives us this totally new way to connect with the ideas in the I Ching.
So to sum up what we've talked about so far, Petersen created this incredible musical work, and it's structured just like the I Ching is, with the 8 trigrams as the foundation, and then building from there to the 64 hexagrams, like a musical map of this ancient system.
And what's really insightful, I think, is how he incorporates chance into his composing. Like reflecting that random selection element of the I Ching, but then also really shaping the music intentionally. It shows a deep understanding of what the I Ching is all about.
And it's designed to be experienced in a way that's similar to consulting the I Ching. Like, you can focus on certain themes or just let chance guide you to a particular hexagram and listen to that piece. It's not just background music. It's meant to make you think.
Yeah, it's engaging.
Hmm.
And if we think about the bigger picture, it's amazing how he uses the titles of the pieces, like Heaven Lake Treading, Walk Thou with Care and Respect for Boundaries and stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. It's like poetry almost.
It is. It's poetic, and it connects the music back to the traditional interpretations of the I Ching. It's like this multi-sensory way to explore these old ideas about change and balance and self-reflection.
It really makes you realize how art, whether it's music or writing or visual art, can give us these whole new perspectives on ancient wisdom. And even on the challenges we face in our own lives. Like, you could even try it yourself. Think about the 8 trigrams or those titles from the Heaven Over series, even without listening to the music. Which ones feel most relevant to you right now? What's going on in your life?
That's a good point. And on that note, here's a question for you to ponder as you go about your day. If you could represent the ups and downs of life with music, what would it sound like? What kind of harmonies and maybe dissonances would you hear in the music of your own life today?
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive. Hope you enjoyed exploring the world of David Petersen's Tales of the I Ching with us.
It's been a pleasure.
See you next time.
Bye.